So when it comes to television, should we be using CGI or practical effects? Find out as me and my brother here talk about it on another episode of Fatherly Fandom, coming right at you at 6 o'clock at the top of the hour.
Technical issue there. My button didn't work for the intro, but that's okay. We got the intro. I switched over manually, so yes. Welcome to Fatherly Fandom, guys. I'm Chris Matthews. This guy up here is
Matt Parham.
Matt P. How you doing today, buddy?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm excited to get going on today's review as we look at She-Hulk episode 3.
So excited.
Available now on Disney Plus. The series comes out with a new episode every Thursdays. In fact, Chris, you can catch it at midnight, right?
Yeah, so I am a weird person. Well, maybe not weird, but maybe. Probably weird.
Jury's still out.
Jury's still out on that.
Talking about a legal drama.
So both Matt and I, we work in the healthcare field, and I actually work on night shift, if you could believe it. I've been up for like more than 24 hours now. That's why I'm drinking a bunch of coffee, and I'm talking like I'm going crazy. But I'm able, the nice thing about it is on my breaks, I'm able to watch these shows. And they do premiere at midnight. So yeah, I got to watch She-Hulk for the first time this episode at midnight.
Able to enjoy it in all shapes and forms. And
Absolutely.
Just like this show, really. I mean, you can check us out on your phone, tablet, computer.
Any time of day.
Whatever you got to stream.
Yeah, and speaking of that, if you haven't already and you enjoy reviews and quirky things and fun facts from Fatherly Fandom, go ahead and hit that old subscribe button and like this channel. Give it a big old Hulk smash on the like button. Yeah, smash it to pieces, because we really do. So we do appreciate your support. We appreciate everybody who subscribes to our channel. It gets us out there. It helps us build this community up. We want to see more people involved, and we want to hear more comments from you about all the fun stuff that we're talking about. Yep. So subscribe today.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
All right.
Just do
Before
it.
we get too far into it, Chris, I've got one question to start us off with, and you know what's coming. Your favorite part of the episode, as well as mine.
Absolute
My
favorite.
question to you: how does the Hulk make extra money in his spare time?
How does the Hulk make extra money in his spare time? He bums some change off of Tony Stark? He can't do that
Maybe
anymore.
that, or he can simply flip houses.
Ah, yeah. Woo! Woo! Yeah.
Yeah.
Realtor talk.
That. Let's skip the review of that joke and instead go to what you thought of tonight's episode.
Gold stars for that
Yesterday's
joke, by the way.
episode. Yeah.
The next day's episode. Yes, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about She-Hulk. We're going to try to be succinct as always and probably fail. So here we go. She-Hulk. Attorney at Law, Episode 3, The People versus EMIL BLONSKY. So this was directed by Kate Caro once again. I do believe there's other directors in this series, but we haven't seen them yet. They're coming.
Haven't seen them yet.
But we are seeing some more people from the writing room. So this one wasn't directed by Jennifer, or not written by Jennifer Gale. This was written by, I think that they're sisters here, Francesca Gales and Jacqueline J. Gales, or are the writers of this episode. So this is the first credit for an episode of She-Hulk. So we get somebody else writing this episode. Rotten Tomatoes, of course, I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes scores now, so you'll always get that fun stuff. Rotten Tomatoes gave it an 88%, and what is going on back there? And the critic rating is, I'm a dad, so I do have kids right now, so do apologize. The critics rating for this was a 93%, so it seems like a lot of people are...
Not too bad at all.
Not too bad. And on that note, so far... this is my least favorite episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, even though lots of people liked it. I really did enjoy it, and I think it's a fun ride, and I find that Tatiana Maslany is crushing it as Jennifer Walters and She-Hulk.
Another pun.
Yeah, right? Crushing that. I am finding, though, that I want the story to move a little bit faster. I want to get to the meat of this stuff, and I want to get to the overarching story. That said, as a procedural law show / sitcom thing, it's hitting all the marks. And the standout for me from this episode, of course, you might know what I'm going to say here, Matt. is definitely Wong. I absolutely.
Of course.
Oh
Wong.
man.
Everybody loves Wong.
I love that. I love Wong. I love the actor. I love Wong. Yes, I do. He's a good character. That's for sure. The Sorcerer Supreme. I love the actor too, and his name is actually Benedict Wong. So plays alongside the other Benedict Cumberbatch in those Doctor Strange movies, if you ever saw him. So he was in this episode, and he did such a good job. He's got such great comedic timing, man. I just absolutely love that. Like my favorite scene, I actually laughed out loud in the break room when they're in the parole hearing, as it is in that max prison. Wong actually rings himself in, and he's late and whatnot, and he gives his testimony about breaking the abomination out of jail. And they mention him like, admitting that you committed a crime here.
Yeah.
And he just goes, I must go. And he just gets up in all seriousness and nonchalantly just uses his ring and walks out like it's no big deal. You committed a crime, dude. I must go. That was my favorite part of this episode. Absolutely loved it. And also, like, they had this subplot going on. This weird little subplot about an Asgardian elf who is impersonating Megan Thee Stallion. Now, I've never heard of this artist before, but she's an American rapper, apparently. Have you heard her music? She's playing herself in the episode. It's a cameo.
Yeah, she's a famous American rapper. Like you said, Megan Thee Stallion playing herself. And I was glad, when you first see her in the courtroom, it's kind of like, oh, there she is for real. It's a little blip, but I am glad that they brought her back for a couple more scenes later on.
Quite a sizable role, too. And, like, I was reading up on this, too, and she wants to get into acting, and this is kind of one of those ways that she's getting in there.
Interesting side note, part of the reason that they brought her back for the additional scene at the end is because She-Hulk herself is a giant fan of Megan Thee Stallion, so it was kind of like a little gift for her to be able to dance together with her, and that was all just sort of planned, but not necessarily told to Tatiana. Not Tatiana.
Yeah, so, what is it? I'm not very familiar with the lady myself, but Megan Thee Stallion is the name of the American rapper. And that's a good anecdote. I didn't know that, and so that's in the comic books that She-Hulk is a fan of this rapper?
No. The actress, Tatiana.
Oh, okay. That makes way more sense then. Yeah. Awesome. And so, there's this Asgardian elf who can, I guess, change their appearance and whatnot. And so she swindles Jennifer's old law partner, Dennis Bukowski, out of $170,000. And, it was a silly but still pretty enjoyable scene. I especially like the courtroom scene. That's my favorite part, and the antics that go along with that. And the writers here, they definitely have a firm grip on comedy, and you can definitely see the influence of Rick and Morty throughout this show. And the more I see it, the more I can kind of see that parallel and how they write and the same type of comedy that we've seen in Rick and Morty put into the Marvel Universe, into this show. So in this show, and it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. And now I find that I really want this character to be involved in more real stakes. And that's something that's lacking. Like it's a lot of fun, and it's being billed as a comedy. That's great. But I do want to see us move a little bit more forward in this plot. And I'm also a little concerned too. Just a simple detail, and like you guys can have your own opinions. I have my own. It's okay. We don't have to like everything. But I'm a little concerned about how Daredevil's going to work in a show like this. And since it's billed as a comedy, I'm still excited to see it. I just don't know how it's going to pass off with Matt Murdock and Daredevil showing up. If it's going to get more serious at some point, or if it's just going to still lay it on thick with the comedy. I'm not sure how they're gonna thread that needle exactly, but we shall see. And also, I'm gonna say it that and we kind of talked about that stinger a little bit already, but for me, that stinger, the after credits scene, was probably my least favorite part of the show. I was like, oh, okay. And it didn't land comedically for me really at all, and it just seemed kind of pointless, you know. But knowing the backstory and that the actor of She-Hulk really loves this rapper, that makes a lot more sense now. I didn't know that going into it. Also, if you do have kids, forewarn, I haven't shown the episode to my kids. I probably wouldn't show them that part of the stinger of that. Just personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that because they're like, you know, they're doing
You don't want them twerking at home.
That's right. Yeah. So like, let's just leave that part out. And that's the nice thing is you can actually turn it off by the credits, and you don't have to watch that last little bit, but they can still watch the show. Lastly, while I didn't mind the look of She-Hulk in previous episodes of this, I thought it was totally fine in the first couple episodes. For whatever reason, the CGI in this episode was more jarring to me. And it definitely gave me the feeling of Uncanny Valley this time around. Perhaps, you know, it's seeing in full light, and you get to see her up close in the news interview. And I think that might have contributed to why it just felt more Uncanny Valley this time around. Whereas the other times I was totally fine with it. For the first time I was taken out of it because of the CGI done for the She-Hulk. So I definitely felt that in this episode. I didn't feel that in the first couple episodes, so it was really weird. So rating the show, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. This is my least favorite one so far. I feel like it's more filler this episode than anything else. I feel like even though it was about 30 minutes or so, the time dragged as well, and I felt like, okay, let's get on with this. So I'd probably give it a C plus for great. I know I'm getting Chris.
Yeah.
Dang. Low grades here.
Bring out the claws.
Yeah. So the episode, it felt long to me, like I said, and it didn't seem to further the plot of the show. And Titania, we still have, like, from the first episode, you see her for a couple seconds, and she's billed as a major character for this show. And I was like, where is she? What happened? Where did she go? And we still don't know what's going on with that character. So I just want more. I want to further the plot. I want to further the story, and I feel like we are just getting stuck, and it's getting more procedural. But you know, most sitcoms are like that, so maybe that's the way that the show is going to continue. I don't know. We shall see. But that's why I rated this one lower. So 6 out of 10 for me. C plus. What do you think, Matt?
Well, I think that for me, the procedural aspect of it actually worked this week. In that the actual hearing, the parole hearing of EMIL BLONSKY, rang true for the at least the feeling that I get from this show that it wants to be a legal procedural in some sense, as well as a comedy and superhero show, of course. But so I liked that they actually covered a case in this one. In fact, they did two, which was really disjointed for me. That was the part that I was questioning, you know, and they even make a reference. So I'll backtrack a little bit. I did like the fourth wall breaking throughout the first two episodes. I actually like the first time that it happened in this episode.
Yeah.
Because she says exactly what's on everybody's mind.
I know you're
waiting to see Wong. Yeah, and everybody loves Wong, so we're going to bring him on. It's going to be great. And she even says, I know that these episodes are becoming a cameo of the week. But making that fun and breaking the fourth wall also does, I mean, it's starting to feel like an excuse for weak points in the plot or the writing.
Yeah, and I agree.
I definitely, I felt that way in the second time that she breaks the fourth wall, where we have her male lawyer friends sit down next to them at the bar, and they're talking about, oh, he's exhausted with this case. And she says, you know, connecting plot points A and B, and or stories A and B, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, that's true, and that's cute that she just did that, but at the same time, it's kind of covering themselves for, you know, not really having a reason why that other plot was shown. So,
it's a way to write yourself out of it. And, like, I like that too. But at the same point, it does seem...
It very much felt like a moment from Thank You for Smoking. I don't know if you remember old, Chris, which is not that old, but they have a great scene in that movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's very satirical.
Yeah.
But they are this lobbyist is in Hollywood. He's talking about introducing cigarettes back into major movies. And there's going to be this movie that occurs in space between Brad Pitt and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and they're going to smoke this particular brand of cigarette. And he's like, "Well, how does that work in an all-oxygen environment?" And the director guy, played by Rob Lowe, says, "Oh, we'll just write it into the script that we introduced. Thank goodness we introduced that, smoking device." Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. And that felt like this moment. They just put in
Yeah.
that one line and it kind of cleared up some mismatched plots. But I didn't
Right.
think it did. I think it actually called attention to the fact that there really wasn't much connection here. In fact, I almost felt like that subplot could have been its own episode.
Yeah.
And then we also got crammed in there, the introduction of the wrecking crew
Yes.
with, just kind of out of the blue.
Oh,
I
and I didn't
really didn't
even.
understand where that came
Yeah,
from.
and I didn't even recognize them. They don't look anything like they do in the like from the comics too. So I actually found that out later on. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that was the Wrecking Crew. Okay, cool. So.
Well, and that's the problem with some of these Marvel shows is that that kind of stuff
Mhm.
happens and it alienates the parts of the audience that don't know these characters from the comics or
Yeah.
something like that. I immediately thought, I'm unaware of something happening here. I'm unaware of the backstory of what's going on. And Marvel can't spend all this time having origin stories for character that they put in these TV shows or movies, but at the same time, you got to do a little bit of service for people that are unfamiliar with this material. And maybe they will in an episode or two, but like you said, with Titania, we just haven't revisited that. It's only been 3 episodes, so we got to give this show
Yeah, we
some
do.
time. But I do think that again, I'll just keep beating that dead horse that if they put more minutes into these episodes, they could give us a little bit more detail and it'd make a little bit more sense. But
You
I
know,
won't belabor that anymore.
yeah. Well, I mean, after this episode, you might have a point, Matt, because if these were a little bit longer, this episode might have been broken up into two different
Yeah,
episodes, and it might have made a little bit more sense. So I
yeah.
can kind of agree with that in a little bit. I have liked the shorter episodes for episodes 1 and 2, but this
Hmm.
one, like even though it was short, it felt long to me, and I said that in my
Yeah.
review. Just, but maybe that's the
The
thing.
other highlights for me were the rest of the guest stars. Of course, you've already mentioned Megan the Stallion, but
Hmm.
Tim Roth coming back as the Abomination, and then Peg O'Keefe, who is a very seasoned actor, played Runa, the elf, the shape-changing elf that you're talking about
Hmm.
there. Everybody did a great job, and I think comedic timing was very well done.
Yeah.
And so that's a credit to the writing and the actors as well, of course. But some of the humor did fall a little bit flat for me. One place was I actually don't know if it was supposed to be a joke or not. We saw, of course, in the end credits, they do those sort of legal sketches
Yeah.
to almost advance little portions of the plot. And there was one sketch with Emil leaving the prison and like one of his pen pals is in tears. And I thought, well, does that mean he's dumping them? I honestly haven't been a big fan of whatever
What
that
is?
little subplot is. I
Yeah.
don't understand it at all if it's supposed to just be this giant joke.
Well, yeah.
Because if it is, it's I don't know, it's kind of funny, I guess, but does he have like a cult following? I don't know what it's meant to be.
Yeah, and this
So,
is the type of stuff that Rick and Morty does all the time. They'll have all these little subplot and little things, little sketches within the show too that don't really have any relevance for the overarching story. So I kind
yeah,
of feel like that's what this is going to be too. Is pen pals are just going to be some kooky back thing that doesn't really ever get explained or
yeah.
anything like that. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough because it's like that sort of thing.
Hmm.
You don't want a show like this to spend a whole bunch of time explaining every little nuance of the plot, or jokes aren't necessarily funny if you explain them, all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. But at the same time, maybe jokes like that just work better in a cartoon format because they're sillier because
Yeah,
they're
yeah, I
drawn.
think
I don't
so.
know.
I think you might have a point there too. I think that it might,
Yeah,
it serves better in a
could
cartoon,
be.
and maybe this show would have done better as a cartoon too. Like,
I don't know. And we're gonna
yeah,
get into that a little bit here, but before we talk about practical, really, I want to give everybody my review of the episode or my rating of the episode
let's do it.
as a 6 out of 10 as well. I agree with you. I think this wasn't the strongest that we've seen so far.
You heard it
And
here
just
first.
kind of
We same rating,
yeah.
first time ever. Fatherly
Yeah,
fandom.
it just kind of felt disjointed and like
Agreed.
the show didn't know what they wanted this episode to nearly be, so
Yeah.
or to be, so they crammed everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But on to a little bit more information about this discussion that's growing online as each of these new Marvel shows come out, and lots of TV and movies nowadays are using CGI characters, so
Mm-hmm.
computer generated imagery, full on characters like Jar Jar Binks or Baby Yoda. Actually, Baby Yoda, I think, is practical sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So he probably doesn't. Lou Ferrigno, famous bodybuilder and Mr. Olympia, and for playing Hulk in the Incredible Hulk series from 1996. He and Chris, you got that picture up over there now?
Oh shoot, I lost it. Oh
That's
shoot.
okay. I mean, I'm
Ah.
sure many of you remember it, but he played the practical version of the Incredible Hulk back in the 90s when CGI really
Mm-hmm.
was in its infancy and you couldn't do these kind of effects, definitely on television.
Mm-hmm.
But if the image does appear over here, great. If it doesn't, I mean, look it up. You can see he looks like a Hulk. You know,
Yeah,
they put him in the green
I'll get it up
makeup,
here.
wig, with that.
I'll get it up here in a second, so we'll get it.
Yeah. We have
Boom.
a picture of him right next to Mark
Done.
Ruffalo as the Hulk in the Avengers, the
Yeah.
completely CGI version. Of course, they base the facial structure on that, on Mark's performance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but perfect, we got
Yeah.
it going.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can see very, very detailed, and this isn't the first Avengers. In She-Hulk, I think they've even gotten so much better with Mark Ruffalo's
Right.
CGI. It's amazing. In episode one, you can see individual facial hair on his skin. You can see pores. I mean, just the deep level of detail is amazing
Mm-hmm.
for television. But is the just the movement and the fact that you know that it's not real enough to withdraw you as an audience member
Yeah.
from the escapism of a show like this. And I think there's a conversation to be had there. Disney, whenever they first released trailers for this show, and we'll bring up the next image here. You can see the YouTube picture shows the original trailer, and then the Disney Plus picture
Yeah.
shows when Disney actually enhanced their own trailer, added more detail so you can see a little bit more texture to Jennifer's skin, her hair, a little bit in her lips and eyes as well.
Yeah. It's
And
it's
so
more
they
defined.
worked hard on trying. What's that?
Yeah. It looks definitely more defined on the
Yeah.
Disney Plus show versus the YouTube.
Yeah, and that YouTube one was what they released
Mm-hmm.
on Disney Plus and all sorts of streaming platforms in order to this episode, and
Mm-hmm.
immediately the CGI caught everybody off guard.
Yeah.
Now,
It did.
some people online have, in fact, argued that CGI for this type of show is not the way to go. In fact, Lou Ferrigno is one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And in an interview that we'll put a link in the description to this video,
Yeah. Down in
you can read his comments. Now, I will preface this by saying the article that you read there is actually mostly about his new movie, The Hermit, which he's currently filming now. It's a horror movie, and he stars in it. And so they're asking him a lot about that sort of thing. And they eventually get to the Hulk. He
Mhm.
goes on to say that he was very disappointed with the way that the Hulk is being portrayed now because he's wearing a suit and he sounds like Professor. The Hulk needs to be authentic, he said, hideous and more organic. And now I don't know what I'm looking at. It's too much CGI. And so you can tell from his comments there that it's not his favorite, obviously. So if you were to take his advice here and go with a practical She-Hulk, how could it be done? Well, many have suggested that you could do something similar to what they did in Captain America: The First Avenger, where they had a body double for Steve Rogers when he was meant to be the original person, the smaller person. They put Chris Evans' face onto Steve Rogers. Now, some people say that was enough to be an uncanny valley type of situation for me. I didn't like that either.
Hmm.
But the stuff has come a long way. The technology to put Robert Downey Jr.'s face on a younger version of his body in order to have him look younger. They've done this in The Irishman. They've done tons of it now, and they could have done it for She-Hulk. The next couple of pictures that we'll bring up here
Okay.
is a woman by the name of Gabby Garcia. Now, in the first picture, you can see that she is a pretty tall person.
Yeah, she
In
is.
fact, she is about 6'2", and she is an MMA fighter. So
Mhm.
she is very physically developed. She's got a bodybuilder build, much like She-Hulk. And you can imagine that if Gabby had taken on the role as basically the stunt double or
Mhm.
stand-in, and then the actor Tatiana the chance to portray her facial features, they could have put Tatiana's face on Gabby.
Mhm.
Now, you can see in the second photo here that she shares a similar build to what we've seen the CGI version
Yeah.
of Jennifer Walters as She-Hulk look like. And in the third picture, you can see that her musculature is some obviously would look imposing. When the wrecking crew comes against somebody like this,
Yeah.
there's just no doubt as an audience member, I would think this person would pummel four guys easily, even if they had these Asgardian weapons or something. So why they didn't go with a situation or with a special effects technique like that, I don't know. This lady, Gabby Garcia, is an MMA fighter, like I said, and
Mhm.
her nickname actually is She-Hulk because of her physical similarities
Right?
to the character from the comics. So it could have been something that they chose to do, but they went another way. So I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Practical or CGI for a television show? We've got Jennifer walking around. She's about a 6'7" build, but
Yeah.
she's in suits. She's in interviews. Is CGI really the appropriate thing for shots like that?
Yeah, it seemed like it would cost way less to do it practically as well.
Right.
I've always been a fan of trying to do things practically and using CGI to enhance what we see, and so that we like how I think of like Castaway. It's like the way that they integrated
Oh, that's a
CGI
great,
shots in that. It's just like
great example.
right? So you can barely tell on that. And so CGI should be a way of enhancing what we already have. It shouldn't be what we rely on completely. It should be so like we are you're a person and you're wearing clothes, I guess. So if you're the CGI should be a suit that you put on or so. I don't know what thing am I
I,
trying
I
to say
think
here.
I think it should be something that you can't practically do,
Yeah,
you know. And if you
absolutely.
have methods of doing it practically,
And they
and
know they
for
do.
She-Hulk to me, what's that?
And we know that it can be done practically because there was a
Yeah,
show in the 70s that, Lou Ferrigno portrayed perfectly for
very
that.
much
So,
looks the role,
hmm
right? I mean,
and you can
yeah,
enhance that stuff with CGI and add to that. Yeah, like the things that you can't do practically. So I think that there's a lot to be said for that. And after this episode, I very much feel that, yeah, maybe that was the way to go with this character.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
This
remember
it,
seeing this for the first time, like in the trailers and whatnot. you didn't get a clear shot of the face and everything, and you saw the side. Like I remember the teaser trailer, you only saw the side of She-Hulk, and it almost looked like they were going to do this practically, and I was like, oh, that would be
Yeah.
pretty cool. So, but that's
Yeah.
not what we got.
Right. And I think it just comes down to human nature. When you look at another human being's face, you
Yeah,
recognize immediately its
so hard
authenticity.
to. Yeah,
Yeah, and so to make a computer generated version of that's convincing,
yeah.
I almost wonder if it isn't impossible, you know?
Yeah, it almost is. That's why we have this uncanny valley that we experience when we see a human face and it doesn't look quite right, and they still haven't gotten it right.
Yeah.
You know, Tarkin and Princess Leia and Rogue One, same type of thing. It's like it looks amazing, but at the same time, it's not completely right, and you just don't
Yeah.
believe it as much, you know?
Right.
And
And
same
when
thing
you're
with this.
portraying actors that were out there, or younger
Yeah,
versions of themselves, it is very hard to make that convincing because the
yeah.
audience knows going in that it has to be
And
false.
and we see Tatiana's face. We see her actual face half the time when she's not the She-Hulk. So you get to
Right.
compare that to directly to the CGI, and so I think that kind of hinders it as well
Hmm.
when it comes to this thing. So
That's
yeah,
another thing that I didn't understand is, they have close-ups of the She-Hulk's face. Like, why
yeah,
in the world would you need any CGI? They could have simply had makeup take care of
of
any
half
of
of
that.
those
Straighten your
scenes.
hair out. You don't even
Yeah,
have to paint her green anymore. You can do
right.
that
Yeah,
in CGI versus eliminate her face and try to do this computer version of it. So
right.
I don't know, but it's a small portion, and I will say that the people working on the visual effects are doing everything they can, and that's why I wanted that comparison shot. You can see they are trying to enhance the
Yeah.
textures, make it look as real as possible. So I don't think it's a fault of them. I
Hmm.
just think that whoever made the decision to go with that form of effect here just might have thought that the audience would be drawn into the show enough to forgive it, and that is possible
Yeah.
because I think you can still enjoy the show even though it's a little distracting because you know that it's kind of this weird looking CGI.
Yeah, and for me, it's like, hey, we're in a show that's billing itself as a comedy procedural law show, so it's kooky as it is.
Right.
Again, I think it like now that we're in episode 3, it's almost like this might have been better served as a cartoon or something. I might have enjoyed it better that way, but this is what we're getting. So
Yeah.
I'm here for the ride. I still like the show, and we have these criticisms here, guys. But it doesn't mean if you absolutely loved it and you love the CGI and the people that worked on this stuff are working their tails off, and we appreciate all that they're doing to give us this amazing entertainment. And so, I mean, it is amazing. It's just really hard to portray a human being in CGI. It's a very, very tough thing. And
Yeah.
I do appreciate all of the visual effects artists that are working on these things, and you put in so much time. Thank you for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
for us, it isn't landing, and that's okay. Maybe it's landing for you. Let us know in the comments too what you
I'm
thought.
sure that our jokes on this show aren't landing as
Neverland.
well, and we work very tirelessly
Literally,
on all that,
I'm
but
tired. So
yeah. Yeah. I'm not nearly as much as I'm sure these people worked on this CGI though.
no, no, not at all. I'm sure they're putting in long hours too, and in dark
Yeah.
spaces, and you have to be right there in front of a
Right.
monitor all day and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's what we got for you today, everyone.
that's it.
6 out of 10 from both of us,
Wow, first
and a
time.
lot of information about CGI. Let us know what you think about that debate. Is it distracting? Is it just fine? Is it beautiful work? You tell us in the comments below, and we'll read them whenever we get to
Yeah.
our next review, which will be what, Chris?
I think we are going to be going in. Guess what? We're going to be heading back to Middle Earth. Going back
That's
into the
right.
Rings of Power, which actually premieres tonight at midnight, episodes 1 and 2. So we'll be watching that tonight. And I think we're going to be recording the next day, maybe tomorrow night. Is that Still the
Yeah,
plan.
the hope is.
All right.
Tomorrow
So
night.
we're gonna try to get that in, get both episodes in, and get you a review of that. And that's gonna be happening on a weekly basis as well. So we'll be covering that on Fridays from now on. So I look forward to that. And then after that, we have our Sunday show. We'll be tackling Prey and the Predator, the original. Get to the chopper.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be so cool. I'm so excited for that episode. If you haven't seen Prey yet, go freaking watch it right now so that you can join us on Sunday to talk about it, input, because that right there is an amazing movie, and from start to finish, beautiful piece. Watch it to this weekend, okay? So yeah, that's it for us here on Fatherly Fandom. As always, I'm going to a little housekeeping here if we can. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and smash on that like button. Subscribe and set up notifications. Help us out. It would be duly appreciated for anybody to subscribe to the channel. It gets us out there and helps us produce this stuff and be kooky and talk about all the stuff we love here at Fatherly Fandom. So subscribe today, please, if you can, good sirs and ma'ams and people. All the people out there. We really appreciate you. Yeah, leave us comments. If you do leave a comment, we'll be able to read it on the air. We'll be able to reply to you guys. We will be very receptive to that kind of stuff because we want to build this community up. And we want your input as much as possible. And you can actually come on, and we'll have a live stream on Sundays, most Sundays. Sometimes we won't because, life happens. But on our live streams, you can join us and comment. We'll read it on the air. We want you to be involved as much as possible. So please come and join us here at Fatherly Fandom. All right? Well, we hope you had a good week. Hopefully you have a good Thursday. And we'll catch you.
From our houses to yours. We'll see you later.
Adios, amigos.